Now, the Bram Weinstein Show on Washington's new home for sports, ESPN 630.
Hi, everyone. Hello, everyone.
Hello there.
Hi. Okay.
What's the vibe today?
I didn't go out there today.
Okay.
I'm now doing, because of their practice schedule, I go Wednesdays and Fridays because it's a race against time to get back from their practice of what I'm allowed to watch. So
Got it. Okay.
I do it on Wednesdays to get vibe check, and then Thursdays I just have to go pass, and then Fridays I get to talk to Rivera. And they start earlier, so I get to pull that off.
I have a little
So
news
that's
for
my
you.
Schedule.
Right off the top.
Yeah.
Commanders just tweeted the Eagles game is sold out.
Uh-oh. Well, I hope that's our guys. Hopefully it's our guys. That's what I'm hoping.
Tickets are cheap, so I'm gonna
I mean, look.
as somebody who is looked into moving their tickets for that game.
No, don't do that.
This is always the case. Caps play that day, unfortunately.
Afternoon
game.
Could you geofence the area codes and address zip codes for that one for me, please? Less green would be nice. I'm asking as a friend. Less green is nice.
Just put yourself in my shoes real quick, because I know what you would say. I like money, so I don't care where it's coming from.
I know.
Go Birds!
I have tickets to the Eagles game that I'm going to give to friends, but they will be partial to our team. I refuse. I actually refuse to give them. I refuse to give them to any, because I'm going to give them to people. So, I refuse to give them to anybody who is not going to root for our team.
When we were at the old station and we were the flagship of the then Redskins, it was when the Redskins played the Giants on Thanksgiving, the only game that was at FedEx Field. Mm-hmm. And they're family friends, and they were Giants fans. And I had to tell my parents, hey, you need to tell them they cannot wear Giants gear because you're guests of the team, and they thought they were joking. No. And it was like, no, you have to wear either skin stuff or neutral and not cheer for the team.
I pulled that when this was the damn good culture game where I got four tickets.
Rainy New England game.
I was given 4 tickets to a box for the New England Washington game, and 2 of the people who were coming with me were Patriots fans, and I told them the same thing. I said, "Listen, I'm like, you're not to wear Patriots stuff,
right?
I'm serious." And I was like, "I'm dead serious.
Yeah,
we're in a box, and I play hard and fast with that rule. Sorry.
Yeah, right.
This is our stadium. I'm not going to be the guy that invited the infiltrators.
Right.
It's just not going to be me." So, when I used to buy tickets and wasn't covering the team or doing what I'm doing with the team, I, like you, would sell certain games.
So,
and then whoever buys them, and that's the way it works out. But I don't do that anymore. So I'll eat them before I give them to anybody that's going to wear green to the stadium. That's not going to happen on my watch. Not on my watch, player.
That's on you, not on me. So.
Yeah.
I paid for mine.
So I listened to Eric Bieniemy and Jack Del Rio. I was very interested to hear what they would have to say today, because this is the first, what's up, guys?
Right. Well, it's also
the
2
first
weeks.
What's up, guys game.
It's also 2 weeks, because remember, it was a short week last week. So I mean, I don't think there was much asked, about the previous game before the Eagles game. But.
I often don't think that the contentious press conferences, which I didn't think either one of them really got that way, but I don't actually think that's typically a bad thing for the team to hear, that people care and are wondering why you're not performing very well. And in Jack Del Rio's case, 4 straight games with 30-plus points, second worst scoring defense in the league, 25th overall.
Yep.
That's not what we expected.
Correct.
And they don't have the excuse of a lot of injuries. They've started to get a couple of them now, like Derek Forrest will be missed for sure.
Right.
Jeremy Reeves, who doesn't really play on defense, but on special teams will be missed for sure. But the defensive line, last I checked, is fully healthy. And the corners are fully healthy. Mm-hmm. And, I don't think there's much of an excuse for what's happened, because you could Philadelphia and Buffalo scored a lot of points. Okay, they do against everybody.
Yeah.
Denver and Chicago doing it. Now we got to ask some questions. And, this is the last 2 home games. They've been run.
Yep.
So there's some real questions that have to happen. We did get one today that I enjoyed very much, which is you'll hear Ben Standing of The Athletic, who, as you know, I love. And I will criticize the question in a moment. But and let me preface this with, Jack Del Rio doesn't really say much about anything.
Yep, right. Yeah. It's the joke with him. He used to be a head coach too, so he knows how to coach speak everything essentially.
Yeah. In fact, I would tell Rod sometimes you might be a little better served to go the Jack route on some of this stuff, because he's very expansive about literally everything. Yeah. And I know it's his disposition to be that way. And every once in a while, it's like, when you say you put your foot in your mouth, that's your fault for putting your foot in your mouth.
That's right. Yes.
Okay.
Exactly.
So here was a question from Ben Standing today. This was specific. Well, it's about Cody Barton. You'll hear. Okay. So they went through the gamut and they got around to this one. Listen to this.
And with regards to Cody Barton, you've said you've been okay with what he's shown so far. Where are you at with him, I guess, now? And because obviously you look at some of the information out there, and there seems to be some missing part there as to what he's bringing to the table. What are you seeing that maybe others are not?
What do you mean a missing part? I'm not understanding.
Just that, maybe it just hasn't played up to the level that, people are hoping for if he's going to come in and be the starting Mike. So I guess to that end, what are you seeing that maybe others are not?
What people are, who am I answering to? Which people? And what
the world at large, I guess.
And what are they looking at?
Well, I guess
I like the way he prepares and competes. So I think he'll continue to get better, impact us in a positive way.
Okay. So, all right. So this is specifically about one specific player. And I will start with this. I actually think Del Rio handled that very well.
Yeah. I mean,
I'm going to go through Professor Weinstein here in a moment with the questions. And I want to reiterate, I love Ben.
Yeah.
And I'm not criticizing him personally, because a lot of people do this. Some are saying.
Yeah.
I think that's a crutch.
Would you
I dislike that one as much as talk about this.
Yeah, talk about the worst.
I don't
one,
like talk about.
Tell me
this.
about. Yeah, but
ask a question. If you want to ask a question, ask a question. But talk about this. Talk about the touchdown you threw. Okay, that's fine.
Sure,
right?
When you a specific play, yes.
A specific thing.
What'd you see there? What went through your head?
Can you talk about the 3rd and 12 that you completed, or the 3rd and 12 that didn't go the right way? Can you tell, what did you see there or whatever? I'm okay with that. Or even if it's just talk about this specific thing. But the talk about how your team is playing, that's not a specific question. That's not what he asked. So let me go back to what he asked here. He said there is some information out there.
Right.
What are you referring to?
Would you have preferred him to say Pro Football Focus? Because Jack doesn't know what that is, I'm guessing.
Maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. I mean, Rivera does. He points that out all the time where he says they're graded this way.
Sure.
And one of them was funny. That was the one last year on Trey Turner and Andrew Norwell, and I'm like, yeah, from 2018. Yeah. But whatever. I always like to defer to, I'm open to being wrong about this.
Sure, yeah, totally.
Because I'm not the coach or the GM or the scout, and I'm not going to pretend. The same thing I felt about Wentz. I'm like, if you guys feel like you can fix them, I will pretend that I don't know what I'm talking about here, even though my eyes are telling me it's an uphill climb for you. But okay, go on.
I did say Pro Football Focus, but it sounded like to me Jack actually knew exactly where Ben was getting that from.
You heard the sigh.
And almost had I swear if you say Pro Football Focus, I'm going to tear it apart real fast. Yeah. And I think that's probably why Ben was like, people are saying that. Because to me, it sounded like Jack knew what was coming and was like, go on, say it. Say their name.
Say it. Well, right. But I actually think that I'm gonna stand up for him here. If that's what you're gonna say, say it.
Okay,
cite them then.
Yeah.
Because you're saying some people are saying this, and then he said there's a missing part. And Jack goes, what's the missing part?
Yeah.
What are you talking about? I need you to be specific here. And he's right to ask this question, because Ron would actually generalize off of it and give an answer. And then it's murky because whatever his answer is, everyone gets mad at. Jack was actually very clear and is like, what are you talking about? And then he said, well, people are saying this. And he goes, what people?
Who's on first?
And then Ben, of course, says the world at large, which...
He could have just said fans, by the way.
Okay.
Because that is, reporters go off what fans are saying too.
The first couple of weeks, I was the first to say after watching the film of him, after the summer and then watching the film of him, I went, I don't think he played particularly well the first couple of weeks. Mm-hmm. I actually don't think he's been a problem the last few weeks, which I actually find interesting that his name popped up here.
Yeah.
Because we'll play this during Commander's Daily later, the whole thing, where it starts with Emmanuel Forbes, and Jack is very open and honest about it. And this is not off to the start we wanted. It is our job to build up his confidence.
Yep.
We are, he needs to get better. We need to help him get better. We're going to be positive about it, but acknowledged, the reality that we all see. In Barton's case, I think it's more nuanced than that. And in my point of view, I don't have a huge issue with the way he's been playing personally. So I thought that question needed to be very specific. In Jack's defense, I think it needed to be very specific to get to whatever point Ben was trying to make, which is, I think he's not playing well.
Yeah.
So say that then.
Right.
And then Jack will answer you, because he said, what people? He's saying, are you saying it? And Ben wouldn't say, I'm saying it. He's saying others are saying it. I don't like you hear this a lot in political talk now, where these questions come up from these political reporters at the White House briefings or to, politicians, and they go, some people are saying, who?
Yeah, right.
Some guy with a blue check mark on Twitter who you don't even know if that's a real person. Yeah. I have to answer to that. I don't have to answer to that. And he's right. He doesn't have to answer to that. If you want to ask a specific question, ask it. And I did feel like this one was, there's a lot to criticize here. I'm not trying to pretend there isn't. But I did feel like I was glad that a coach stood up to questions like that, because I don't think that they're fair. The premise is, we know that that we're all right about how he's playing, but we don't want to say that. We want you to say it, and he's not playing that game. Good. Well, that's the way I feel about it. Good.
Ben has been barking up this tree for the last 2 weeks, though, and this is why I think he was asking this, is he's about to probably write something on the entirety of all of the personnel moves, because we've gotten it here. Last week it was Quan Martin. We didn't get to it because it was a short week, but I just think you and I both know
he's
this.
He's not playing.
Right. You and I both know this, though, when some of the beat reporters, and this goes for any team, not just the Commanders, when the pattern of questions starts to get
where they're going.
You know what's about to hit, essentially. Yeah. And so that's where I think Ben was going with it.
I go to the press conferences not because I'm really a reporter anymore, but I want to hear what the narratives are going to be. And if you just hear what they ask, you know what they're writing about.
Yep, correct. Exactly.
The smart reporters ask these questions on the side.
Yeah, I mean, that's true.
Because but they may not have access. So sometimes they have to ask it in the public forum. And when they do, and I don't think Ben or anyone else who's writing what about the draft class and free agents as the story of the 2023 season, or a big part of the story of the 2023 season, I don't think they're wrong asking those questions at all. In fact, I think they're right in line with what is going on here. We talked about this the other day. This draft class has provided very little.
Right.
And some of it was weirdly by design.
Yep.
I don't think purposefully, but when they took the players that they took at the positions that they took, the only one that was guaranteed a starting spot or an integral role was Emmanuel Forbes, which should be the case. He's your first round pick, and they needed a cornerback, right? But then the selection of Martin, the selection of Stromberg, the hopeful selection of Daniels, because they did need a backup tackle, but that didn't quite pan out. And then the rest is bottom of the draft, but two of them are rush ends on a team that has a bunch of rush ends. So the whole thing, the second the draft came out, we went, well, I hope Forbes is a hit, because these other guys, unless there's injuries, aren't going to play, or unless there's corresponding moves we don't know about, aren't going to play.
Yeah.
So you had a draft of depth on a team that had to win. So that's worth asking.
Yes,
right?
Correct. Exactly.
And then I think it is fair to ask, when you've given up more sacks than anybody else, two of your free agent signings are offensive linemen.
Yep.
It's a fair question. These are fair questions to ask. And I agree. We all know that Ben's big, expansive piece, especially if they lose this weekend, is going to be about roster construction and off-season decisions about personnel from the draft to free agency. And that, to me, is an extremely fair criticism of this year's story and this year's team, for sure.
Yep. Right. Exactly.
That question, though, I'll stick up for Jack here, and I actually think he didn't get mad about it. He was just like, say what you want to say.
Right.
Because you're hiding behind, there's a bubbling thing about this player. Well, why don't you say it if you believe it?
Yeah.
What, does everything fans say you agree with? Because you don't.
Right.
So I will stick up for Jack on that, whose press conferences typically have very little, because he's very coach speaky. He will not talk about schematics. I don't blame him. Mm-hmm. And he often, after the Jamin Davis thing a year ago where he pointedly went after him, he kind of stepped back and was like, I think that's out of Rivera. Rivera doesn't like doing that either. He will do it covertly. He will say things like, we need more maturity.
Yeah.
Or, and he'll, on the side, he'll tell you what he means about that so that we can all contextualize what they mean by that when we tell the story from their point of view. When you're telling the story through the fan funnel point of view, this is where you get in trouble with them because they may not agree with you. And if you're not specific about it, now I'm going full professor here. If you're not going to be specific about it, well, what do you want him to say?
Yeah.
You want him to say he agrees with the fan base that thinks Cody Barton isn't playing very well, of which, oddly, I'll sit here and tell you, I don't think he's played that poorly the last couple of weeks, and I don't think he's been their biggest problem by far.
He hasn't at all. Yeah.
No. The secondary's been a big problem, and it's weird, actually, because I was going through all the numbers, to get ready for the game last night, to get ready for the game this weekend. The amount of pressures that they have actually is pretty high up on the list. So maybe the defensive line is getting they're not getting a ton of sacks lately. Mm-hmm. And oddly, I find myself more wondering what's going on in the interior line than I am on the outside because Chase Young had a ridiculous amount of pressures last week. It was Allen and Payne that really didn't. And they're the ones that typically kind of, in my opinion, control the line of scrimmage more than anything. And those are the two that, for me, as someone, who's watching, that's what I'd be asking about. And nobody wants to complain about them. One, because of Allen, of who he is and what his standing is and what he means to the team. But he has not been as impactful as he has been in recent years over the last couple of weeks. And Payne, who I'm seeing getting double teamed constantly. So it's hard to really criticize that. Like, what is he supposed to do?
Sure.
Beat two offensive linemen every play? Right. But he also isn't having the type of impacts that I'm accustomed to seeing him having. So that, to me, is a bigger question than Cody Barton right now. I get why you're asking the questions. And one of it is because of the larger, we know what he's about to write here. It's about free agents and the draft, and Cody Barton is in that category.
Yeah.
He hasn't filled a role that they've needed filled since Rivera got here.
Right, exactly. Which, by the way, Rivera and Jack Del Rio, both former linebackers. So
middle linebackers.
Yeah, right.
I know.
It's one of the more baffling things.
They used a first-round pick on a guy who was not a middle linebacker, that they wanted to be a middle linebacker, realized he's not going to be, so they moved him to a different position. Okay, he's still on the field every other play. Sure. I mean, mainly. So, and I think he's gotten better, frankly. I don't know if he's ever going to be good, but he's gotten better. But he's not what they expected him to be.
You say that about a lot of their picks.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know. Jahan's a hit.
Okay.
He's not. I think Robinson's a hit, frankly.
Right. I mean, you can't move those guys around. Cosme's the same light. They drafted him to be a tackle.
That's right.
That failed.
That's right.
Well, I wouldn't say failed. They just couldn't decide what to do with him, and then they finally moved him to guard.
They wanted him to be a tackle.
Right.
It became pretty evident last year that he's probably better served to be a guard, and he might end up being a pretty good one.
Right.
And in fact, if you want to cite PFF, I think he's the only offensive lineman that they've credited as not giving up a sack yet of all the sacks.
Got it.
Now, I don't know that that's fair.
Right.
Because it's a collective group.
He doesn't touch someone on a play.
His guy hasn't sacked them yet.
Yeah. Right.
It doesn't mean that he's not at fault for what's going on, but his guy hasn't allowed a sack yet. So anyway, all right, then comes Bieniemy, who got a lot of pointed questions. And again, you'll hear all of this. In Commanders Daily. But let me read a couple of juicy quotes that I thought was interesting from him. Let's see. Like, they asked about Sam Howell taking the amount of hits that he's taking.
Right.
And he said this: you want to make sure you're taking care of your quarterback. Obviously, some of that is self-inflicted wounds by him, but also, too, I mean, we're a team and collectively we all take our share in the blame. So we just need to make sure that we're doing a great job protecting up front, and we got to make sure that we're giving all our guys all the answers on how to handle all the different issues. So he's saying a couple things at once. One, when Hal does run with the ball, he seems to take an unnecessary amount of hits. That's not on Bieniemy. And Hal even acknowledged that yesterday. It was like, I probably should take care of myself a little bit better. But his answer to that was, I'm trying to win, and I'm doing what I have to do. Like, there were a couple last week where he pinballed off of a few of the Bears players on runs where I'm going, oh. And I think I even verbally said, I go, he's taken a few too many hits for my liking at this point.
Sure. Yeah.
You're allowed to go down. The rules are in your favor this way. I appreciate you wanting to get every extra yard. And on that 2-point conversion that you have to make, if you got to put your body on the line, he seems to be extremely willing to do it. And on those, I'll give the pass for. You can't slide at the one. You got to try to get in the end zone. But there were a couple of those runs where he's just getting clobbered because he's refusing to go down at any point in time. And I really feel like his body's going to tell him to stop doing that at some point, I hope. Or we're going to get an RG3 situation, because that's what happened with him. And we were like, dude, run out of bounds. Protect your body. Stop letting Haloti Ngata hit you.
You don't even have to go,
stop doing that.
You have to go to RG3. You can go back to Heineke last year. Remember, Heineke started to break down towards the end of the year because he was taking too many hits.
They then asked, what about Logan Thomas leading the team in targets? Which I think it's an interesting question to ask, because clearly, if you're designing it, that's not what should be happening.
Right.
I do like that he's back in the red zone again.
Yes.
That I appreciate.
That's a no-brainer, yeah.
Yes, because his first year, that's why they paid him, because he became integral in their red zone offense. And the last couple of years under Scott, we were like, here's your best red zone target, who seems to be one of the toughest covers because of his size, and he's got great hands, and he's not even on the field sometimes for this, and it doesn't make any sense that you're doing that. So that he's become part of this again, I think is smart. I also think, and this is where I'll protect Hal a little bit too, I think he's going where the ball needs to go. I don't think he's playing favorites. I think he's just doing what he's kind of supposed to do here. So I think it's ended up there. It's on the offense to figure out a way to make space for Jahan and Terry and Kurt, for that matter. Like, it's on them to do it. Hal's just reading the play and taking what they're giving him. His completion percentage shows that. Like, I actually think that this is a product of this is what the defenses are giving them, and Hal's reading that. Don't we want that?
Right. I mean, the defenses are sitting back on everything. So it only makes sense that it's going underneath to Thomas, who, of course, has a size advantage. To the Scott Turner thing, too, though. I think that was Scott's biggest flaw, was not just Logan. He would forget about players entirely during games. So when Logan got banged up and wasn't in the lineup every single week, Turner just didn't use him because he forgot about him. So that was probably the biggest fault of that one. I wouldn't even say it was Logan specifically. There'd be weeks where, Terry would get one target and the whole entire fan base would be like, dude, what are you doing? So,
asked about the early deficits that they're in, he said this: I'd like to sit here and say it doesn't impact anything, but I'll be telling you a lie, obviously. There's a lot of things that go into a game plan and wanting to do, but at times unfortunate things happen, and my job is to make sure that I'm giving us every opportunity to have a chance. The unfortunate thing is we need to make sure that we can find a way to have early success for whatever reason when you're establishing, building a culture, or you're trying to get everyone on board with everything. So, but this is a fair question of him, which is, I get it, you guys are down, but what seems to be happening is you get very pass heavy.
Yep, right.
And which turned into a question of, what are your conversations like with Ron Rivera? Which, as we know, he said over and over, he's very old school about this. I'd like to run the ball more. They're not even close to doing that.
They're quite the opposite, actually.
They're one of the least effective run teams, and it's mainly because of attempts lately.
Yes, exactly.
Mainly. Like, their numbers are down. They're only averaging 91 yards a game rushing, but Robinson's numbers are way down in carries.
Right.
So they're not running the ball. And then last week was crazy because they didn't even design a run play for 2.5 quarters, which... What are we, the University of Hawaii? What is this, June Jones? Like, that's nuts. So they asked him, what are these conversations like? And he goes, Sam's done a good job of handling all this. He goes, I'm not a stats guy, but sometimes when you look at him, you're like, well, damn, I guess we're doing okay. Obviously, we have to fix some things. So I think he's acknowledging that, and he said, Rivera and I, we talk about focusing on the positive stuff, and he's, openly, Rivera's an optimist about everything. And I don't think everything's broken, honestly.
Sure.
I agree that all of this matters. Like, the early deficits are bad. Some of that's on the defense. They keep getting scored on early in the game. They don't start fast, which is one of the things they keep talking about. Rivera's an optimist, but Rivera also, and this has happened every year at some point, and this is about the time it happens, we're going to run the ball.
Yeah.
Now, he's not openly saying it this time. He was messaging it to Scott Turner. In this case, he's not openly saying it, which I've been waiting for him to go, we need to be at bare minimum more balanced because it's his comfort zone, but he's not saying it to EB, maybe partially because of what happened in the summer when he openly said things about EB's in charge and he could maybe learn some things from other people. Like, I don't think he wants to go down that road. So this is all, to me, I think they're all trying to figure out how to work together, all of them.
Well,
that's what it reads to me like.
The other factor there, too, though, is when he had that press conference, we played it live, Remember, it was Rivera and Martin Mayhew?
Yes.
And that was the time where they said they wanted a split, where they were like, we want 50-50 run pass. And once again, because they said something out loud like that, the entire fan base and media went completely off.
Yeah.
Because they said run the ball. And everybody was like, no one runs the ball anymore. Like that, nobody goes 50-50.
Yeah. I also will, and I'll say this in fairness to the coaches, like the game plan's the game plan until you're down 14-0.
Right.
Then you have to change things. But they did ask him, and I'm glad someone just pointedly asked this. What did you think of 55 straight pass plays after evaluating the tape? And I didn't love this answer. He said, well, you're evaluating yourself, which I agree. Like, you're the one who called all that,
yep.
Right? Obviously, you want to do everything under the sun to win. I think Andy Reid would be proud of me that we threw it 55 or however many times it was. I think you'd be sitting up there and say, yeah, EB, I see you. I don't know that I love that.
That one
answer.
to me, I heard that one.
It's like I know he's like kind of kidding.
To me, that one's just a deflection. I wouldn't read into that one that much. That's him deflecting on it.
Yeah. So, we're in the point of questions needed to be asked.
Sure.
We're getting the answers, and now we get to determine whether we like them.
Well, they haven't spoken 2 weeks either, so that's why both of them were loaded.
And Sunday's going to be very telling because off of what happened, if they have another one like that,
right,
these press conferences are going to get real ugly. All right, we'll take a quick break. Very much the show, ESPN 630 Sports Capital. The lovely Gwen Stefani starts off our selections from 2005 today. That is Throwback Thursday because that is the first year that Alex Ovechkin and Sidney Crosby played one another in an NHL hockey game. Tomorrow night, they will face off against one another in what will be the Capitals season opener. Penguins have already played this year, but it'll be the first of how many meetings they have the Pens these days? 4, something like that in the regular season, 3 or 4, something like that.
I think it's reduced. It used to be like 4 or 5, but now with the new,
might be down to 2 or 3.
The new format now.
Did you play everybody? You don't like that?
Yeah. Oh, it's terrible. You don't want to play everybody? Yeah. No, nobody should. In hockey, you don't have to play everybody.
Yeah, that's true.
Because it makes the matchups more special if you don't get.
We don't have to go to the peg.
Right. 3 times they play each other
3
this year.
times.
Tomorrow, January 2nd and March 7th. So
go.
nice and spread out at least.
Okay.
I think they played twice early last year, and people were like,
come on.
What are we doing here?
But TNT opening Friday night with Caps Penguins makes a lot of sense, which is what's happening down at Cap 1 tomorrow night. The Capitals start the Spencer Carberry era. Mm-hmm. Alex Ovechkin, Sidney Crosby. I don't know if this is the last season of them playing one another because I've heard some, rumors of, with Crosby, who knows if this is going to be his last season. Maybe, maybe not. Hockey players typically hang on forever. We know Ovechkin's not going to retire after this year because he will not break this record this year. But it starts tomorrow, and so we wanted to look back at 2005 because that's how the hockey season opens here in Washington tomorrow night.
Crosby's
which is, I don't know, this is like, has there been a better, like, player-to-player rivalry in this town?
Oh, that's a good question.
Recent years, I can't think of anything.
Not
else.
with the
We've
longevity.
had a lot of team rivalries through the years. Washington, Dallas, obviously Washington Eagles for the years, but like the Caps and the Pens have been, going at it for years and years and years. Date back to the 80s with Lemieux and Yager and all those teams, and the Capitals teams that could never kind of get by them then. But I can't remember a standout spotlight player-to-player rivalry.
No. No one has the longevity. The only one I'd throw in the ring of the modern era was for like 2 years there when Gilbert was really good. Remember, he was trolling LeBron, and that was hot. That was like a wrestling feud.
Stevenson.
Right. That was like a wrestling feud more like anything else.
Yeah,
but neither one of those guys going up against him.
We haven't had a baseball one. We haven't really, not a player-to-player, star-on-star, like, oh my God, you have to see this.
The only one that comes to mind is Hunter Strickland and Bryce Harper. Yeah. Remember that one? But then remember, Hunter Strickland hadn't pitched to him in like 2 years and then threw at him, and everybody was like, what are you doing?
That's definitely not megastars.
No.
Hunter Stevenson wouldn't fall into that, into that one. And, like, I guess Wall never had something like that here. Like, no,
because NBA's year to year. No one really does that anymore. Like, no one's, I mean, you could say the Celtics when there was Death Row DC, but even then, they didn't beat them when it counted. So, what do you want to say to that one?
And oddly, the NBA doesn't really have one now that it's like one particular star against another. They have a lot of stars, and they don't have one particular star where it's like can't miss. It's this star against that star with all the marbles on the line. We haven't had a lot of that because the NBA moves around too much. Too many players moving around, like to establish it.
I think you could make
good team rivalries. There's not really.
I think you could make the argument Terry and whoever the number one corners are. I mean, you could make it, but I wouldn't even say that one.
They haven't had classic ones between him and Diggs yet. I guess him and Slay have gone back a little bit, but like it's not profiled nationally that way. Yeah. Like they actually make a big deal out of Ovechkin and Crosby and have for almost 20 years.
Your boy Jano and OBJ.
Yeah. That's right. That was for a couple of years when he was with the Giants, and he got earholed,
and that was
by OBJ, and then everything was like went wild because they had a couple crazy games when he was in Carolina.
Correct. That's why
then
everyone
he came
went crazy.
To Washington,
yeah.
And then he earholed him in that game, and everyone went nuts on OBJ for doing that. Mm-hmm. So that was for a couple years, and then it became clear also. Josh Norman was not Deion Sanders.
Correct. Yeah. Exactly.
OBJ was probably the biggest name receiver, and for a couple years in New York, maybe the best receiver in the NFL. Josh Norman was a good foil, but nobody was pretending he was Deion or Darryl Green or anything like that. So this is probably the best one we've had that's a player-on-player, maybe in my lifetime. I can't remember anything else where it's been profiled like this. The stars, they've played each other in the playoffs a million times.
Yeah.
They're the Peyton and Brady of the NHL for the last 20 years.
Well, it's not even that, too. One, they're both, of course, two of the greatest hockey players to ever play the game. But
first ballot Hall of Famers, stars on their own accord.
But to the playoff point, every time they played each other, the winner of that series went on to win the Stanley Cup. All 4 times. The Penguins won 3, and they had to go through the Caps each time.
Yes.
And by the way, those were both game 6 and 7s. They were, and ask any player on both rosters, they would both always say, the margin between us is so razor thin. We're kind of lucky to be moving on. And the Caps did the same thing. When the Caps beat them, they won their Stanley Cup. So, yeah, I mean, it's a testament, yes, of course, to Ovechkin and Crosby, but both organizations have also been really good, too. It takes 2 to tango. And to do that for, what are we doing the math here? 18 years? That's pretty nuts when you think about it.
Yeah, 18 years. Well, since I was going to do baseball, I'll do it in the next segment. I might as well talk about Spencer Carberry, who did do a big profile for the Washington Post today as they start a new era with, I feel like on its face, they picked the right coach to thread a needle here. Yeah. Like, this is why I'm actually a little more bullish about them this year than I was last year. I don't look at them and go, that's a Stanley Cup team, but I do feel like when we read the odds yesterday where no one believes in them and they're like, to win the East, there's only 3 teams with worse odds than them, which means Vegas doesn't think they're making the playoffs again.
Right.
I'm not on board with that this time around. Like, I look at their team and I go, if health, and that's a huge if
of course.
With these guys, if health, if this guy does what his specialty is, which is fix their power play, and then Backstrom plays the majority of the games, and Oshie plays the majority of the games, and Kuznetsov is semi-reliable.
Serviceable.
Again. Yeah. Because I think Ovechkin will do what he does, and then Carlson plays the majority of the games. And I know they have a good goaltender now. Like, I don't think that this team's an also-ran.
Yep.
So, and they got this guy who knows the young guys and is open-minded to, we have to incorporate younger, fresher legs from down in Hershey up here now.
Yep.
They're open to this. I'm more open to, they may surprise, shockingly, they're not going to be the suck this year. I am willing to buy they're not going to be the suck this year. I don't think that we're going to be having a parade on the mall again, but I'm open to, and I feel like on its face, they picked the right guy. We'll see. He's young. He's hungry. It's his first chance. He did very well with a very stacked roster in Toronto. He knows this system. He knows the organization. He's my new best friend, everybody. Spencer. Carbs. I eat carbs. Do you eat carbs? I eat carbs.
Ew. Stop that. To add on to all of the things with him, it is worth mentioning that all these kids from Hershey, there's been a reset here.
Yeah.
I think all of the younger players, they did not know how to crack this lineup with Peter Laviolette at the helm.
Yep.
Clearly, there was some kind of disconnect or communication style or whatever is not working. Now that these kids have played under Carberry a couple years ago and won a Calder Cup championship, watch them basically flourish here because they actually know what to expect from a coach that is also a little bit younger, going to communicate a little bit better. Also, you can tell Carberry came in and kind of hit the reset button on the culture, not fully, but a little bit, because the word out of training camp was they were worked pretty hard.
Yeah.
And this is a veteran club, and I don't know if that was the case in the past. I don't know if the energy was the same as in the past. So, yeah, I mean, I'm with you. He's going to bring a new energy that I don't think they've had in a head coach here, honestly, since the first few years of Trotz. Trotz, you could trot out, no pun intended, trot out there because he was winning President's trophies and keeping them competitive. There's no reason to change it up.
He was a really good professional coach who had never gotten over the top.
Correct.
He had that team in Nashville competitive every year. They were right there. They were kind of the Caps. They never could quite get over the top. So I think he was hungry when he showed up here. And fortunately, it worked out. They ended up winning a Stanley Cup with him. And then I don't blame them for the hiring of Laviolette. I understood why. Like, they were trying to squeeze out the juice out of a lemon that was going sour.
Right.
But they wanted to have somebody who'd been around the block a million times and had been a winner and hoped that it worked. I didn't take that much issue with it. As things went along, I don't know that it was the best mix, but I understood why they hired him. In this case, where we are literally in a transition, it feels like on its face they picked the right guy.
Right.
And this profile they did of him is very good that the Washington Post did today, where he talks a lot about, really it kind of starts with how he got into coaching, under 30 years old, off of a mediocre playing. Mediocre is the wrong way. He was a professional player. He just never
he played
made
for
it.
South Carolina.
He never made it. But like, he was a professional hockey player, but he just took to coaching. They loved him. He moved up through the ranks very fast in their system, and then all of a sudden he got poached out to Toronto, and now they bring him back because the timing was right for that. And it sounds like he was always wanting to come back here too because he knew the system, understands the system.
And the players.
And you know, honestly, like, if you're going to get a job coaching, who doesn't want to have Hall of Famers on your team?
Right.
You've got 4 of them.
Right. Exactly.
You have 4 of them on your team.
The other,
and one that could be if he tried hard every night.
Well, and also remember what the concern was with Laviolette. Laviolette only got a 2-year deal, I think.
Yeah.
And Carberry got 4 years. And so that's the guarantee too. Hey, we believe in you. We know the next 2 years are about that number 8 guy. But we have faith in that you will keep this, like, we have faith that you're going to do what you need to do to help us win. And we have faith in you that even after that guy's gone, you're going to be here for the 2 years after that. So it's also faith from the organization into him going, we know what the deal is for these first couple years, and we're all navigating it together here, but we're going to give you the other years on the other side to try to get things right.
And also, like, in these cases where you have an era that will be coming to an end,
right?
What you want to have, a good organization has a soft landing into the next phase.
Yeah.
They're finally, I think, a year or two too late. But like, okay, we're finally here, and they've acknowledged it, and they're going, we're starting the transition now to find out who the people are that are going to lead this team when that group goes into the Hall of Fame together.
Right.
And I feel like they got the right guy. That's why I'm like, I'm excited about their season.
Sure.
I don't know that I have high expectations, but I will actually, short of a lot of injuries, which could happen to them because of their age and all that stuff, short of that happening, I expect them to make the playoffs this year with the players that they have. And I think it would be a great first year for them if they get into the tournament in any way. And when they do get there, if they're healthy, they're a menace to other teams. So it'll be good to see.
There is a futures bet out there. Their points over under is set at 85.5.
Yeah.
Usually it's like, but it depends what everyone else does, but usually it's between 90 and 100 gets you into the play. Gets you into
so they'd
the
have to
playoffs.
be about 2 to 3 games better than what people think.
Correct.
I'll buy that.
So will I. Absolutely.
I will buy that.
Yep.
So we'll see. Can we ask John Walton if he's available tomorrow?
Sure. Yeah.
I know it's game day for game one. I don't want to make things too difficult for him, but if he's available, I'd like to talk to him. This will be playing in Cap 1 tomorrow night, I'm sure. And even when they fade it out, because a face-off occurs, the entire stadium will sing it, because that's a Caps thing, as they open their season tomorrow night against the Pittsburgh Penguins at home, which is why we're celebrating 2005, which is when Mr. Brightside came out, because that was the first time that Alex Ovechkin and Sidney Crosby played against one another, November of that year. Here we are 18 years later. And maybe this is the last season of the two of them facing each other. That'll be up to Crosby, of course.
I don't think
we'll
so.
see.
I think he'll finish out his contract there.
We'll see. All right. Let me get into baseball here. There are 2 truisms. One, don't shake the bear cage, which Atlanta did to Bryce Harper, of all people. And stupidly now have themselves in a 2-1 hole because he got very angry and he's in front of the frantic, manic Mad Max crowd of Philadelphia, of which he embodies.
Yes, correct.
And hit 2 home runs last night, and in both cases, stared down the guy who made fun of him in the locker room the night before, or 2 nights before, for making a base path mistake that ended game 2. Otherwise, this might have been a sweep.
Correct. Did you also see what the Philly crowd did near the end of the game?
No.
When it was like 7-1?
No.
They started doing the chop. I mean, that's like classic wrestling trope. That's a classic wrestling trope where you steal the other dude's taunt or move or whatever. And I was like, ooh, that's a good one. That's a good one.
I don't know. So we're staring down a rematch in the World Series now, right? I mean, we're heading that way, aren't we?
Possibly, but the Rangers are going to have something to say about that.
Bruce Bochy and the Black Magic. Yeah. Houston is through, obviously. Yeah. The other truism going back to Philadelphia is, and we found this out the hard way, don't play anything somber while Nick Castellanos is up at the plate, because amazingly, it happened again.
Well, we got a former Phillies manager on our mind. Charlie Manuel continues to improve. He suffered a stroke a couple of weeks ago. A legend here. 12 seasons as a manager in the big leagues, 9 of those coming here in Philadelphia, and was the skipper of that Jimmy Rollins 2008 Philadelphia Phillies World Series winning team. And good reports coming in. He's even taken a little batting practice, we understand, lately. So, Charlie, if you're out there, we're thinking of you. This was Thursday. It's a week ago. He can always rake.
Charlie, all he wanted was people to hit bombs.
In the air, deep left center field. Castellanos has another one for Charlie. His son loving it.
I mean, good save trying to say for Charlie, but
the moment, like if he really, it's one of those you want it back, you go, well, he's done it again.
Yeah, right.
While we're in the middle of, and if you don't know, Charlie Manuel's been very ill, and that's what they were profiling. And they showed video of him taking quote unquote batting practice in what looked to be like physical therapy.
Right, exactly.
And then it was like right on cue. All he wants you to do is hit bombs.
Right.
Boom. There it goes. This is at least the 3rd or 4th documented time. It started with the crazy apology that Tom Brenneman had to make for saying something ridiculous on a hot mic that was caught over the air.
When he was with the Reds, too.
Yes, when he was with the Reds. And then Tom Brenneman came back, did this long apology, and in the middle of it had to say, and Nick Castellanos hit a home run, and then went back to his apology. Of course, never called a game again after all of that.
Yep.
And then it's happened multiple times since. So I don't know. Do the Phillies do this on purpose now on their broadcast? Do they try to bring something somber up while he's at the plate just in case? Yeah, reverse jinx.
Well, I mean, you know how this works in TV, though? They had that plan the whole time.
Yeah.
They don't cue it up when he's up, though, I don't think.
I don't know. It is uncanny that it happens. It's weird.
This has actually been funny on social media, too, on like Instagram and TikTok. They fans will like do fake ones. They're like, oh, my God, your grandma just died? And then like their phone will go to Castellanos at the plate, and he'll have hit a bomb or whatever.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It's so weird. It's hard not to root for them in October because the vibes are so crazy on their side. I love their crowd. I love Harper. Like, the second I heard about that thing where the guy made fun of him in the locker room, I went, oh, you're going to regret that, dummy. Like, you are going to... Why would you do it to him? Like, are you stupid?
The other half of this, too, is, and I saw once again some Nats fans get a little salty because Harper just did the whole, I wish I played my whole career here thing last night.
Yeah.
Guys, he's right. He fits this crowd so well. He fits right in with the Philly crowd.
Yes.
Nats won a World Series.
He embodies it.
Yeah, Nats won a World Series without him. There's no reason to get salty about him. Like,
he embodies it. He wants to be part of an environment like that. He is that environment. It makes him better. I don't hate him. I really don't. I don't hate him. He wanted to be in this environment. He chose to be there. You know, I wish he played his whole career here, but watching him with the joy that he plays with, and I think it's good for the sport. And, you know, him being an October hero left and right, there's nothing wrong with it. And like, so it's hard. It's weird, but like, they're hard not to root for.
Of course. It's also everything
especially against a machine like the Braves. It's not like I like them.
Well, and it's everything that people don't watch baseball for, the Phillies seemingly do. Like, Harper is a little bit of a you-know-what,
Yeah.
He showboats. He does the drama. No one really does that. So he's doing all of the things that baseball should be doing more of.
He'd get criticized in a different city for being that way.
Of course he would. Yeah, absolutely.
He would.
But because it's that city.
Because it's that city, they like it.
Yeah. Well, it's, rattling the cage, so to speak.
Right.
So.
All right. So they are a game away. They play tonight.
Mm-hmm.
So they could eliminate Atlanta. It would be the third 100-plus win team that doesn't make the championship series if they were to win one of the next two.
Correct.
And it does, let's see if Atlanta shook, because I think you'll know early tonight if they're shook. We'll find out. I do want to take the break and talk about the Diamondbacks and everyone's criticism of the baseball playoffs are upside down because of format. You would talk to Al Galdi about this, and I have a retort to that next.
Okay.
All right. Bram and Callow, ESPN 630, Sports Capital. I unapologetically like this song. Ludacris, baby.
See what I did there?
What?
Atlanta.
Oh, Atlanta. Oh, that's right. Atlanta's finest.
That's
from
right.
2005, Throwback Thursday, to commemorate the first time that Alex Ovechkin and Sidney Crosby played each other in an NHL game. And that's how the Caps season's going to start tomorrow night, 18 years later, as the Caps and Penguins kick off the Washington part of the NHL season. Pittsburgh's already played. They played the Blackhawks the other night. Have they played again since?
I think they have. I want to say they have. I'm not sure.
They're going to be in game 3 by the time they get around to us. It was weird. The season started a couple days ago, and then all of a sudden...
Nope, they will not play in between those. But yeah.
All right. So there you go. That's Throwback Thursday. Ludacris will be playing some Friday night at Cap One, I'm sure, this year after a Wizards-Pelicans game. And I'll be at the Hennessy Lounge for that play.
No, you won't.
Yes, I will.
Not for that game. That's going to be a pricey game. You don't want that.
Right. I want what is the cheapest one you got, which is a Tuesday in March.
That's 2:00 Sunday afternoon tip against the Pelicans.
I can't day drink. You know that. I need the 7 p.m. Pelicans or Magic tip on a Tuesday night in March, and they just can't sell that Hennessy Lounge, and they give it to me at a cheap rate, and I want the bottle on the table. Teddy.
Good luck with that.
Mark Parsons is going to join us, head coach of the Spirit, in about 40 minutes as they play their final game of the season, and it is complete chaos in the NWSL.
It is.
Every team can make the playoffs. It will depend. It will depend how the whole season goes, and they wisely are going red zone NWSL. Every game's on at the same time.
Yeah, well, it's not every game, but it's from like 1 o'clock, 1 o'clock on. But all of them will be streamed on, I believe it's Paramount Plus is what they're on.
That's right.
Yeah, it'll be crazy.
That's right. So we'll talk to him about that. That'll be fun. We've had Callow's got 2 production elements to apologize for. One, apparently you couldn't hear the Nick Castellanos bite last hour where he hit a home run during a somber moment. So sorry for that. And part 2, the podcast was incorrect yesterday.
You're calling me out on the air on this one?
Yes, I am. Yes.
I'm batting .999 when it comes to our podcast. So,
like baseball, you're striking out at the wrong time.
Yes, I mistakenly uploaded the same podcast 2 days in a row.
That's right. That's right. You didn't want to play the O's one, did you?
Which one? What do you mean?
That was yesterday.
No, I did want to play it. I typed up the description and everything.
And then I didn't talk about it. Anyway.
We're not all perfect, okay? I messed up one podcast in the 4 years that I've been here.
That's true. So let's see. Atlanta can get eliminated tonight if Philadelphia beats them.
Yes.
It's game 4 up there as the Phillies beat them last night. They could take them out, get to the NLCS, where they will face the Diamondbacks if that were to happen.
Yes, correct.
Because the Diamondbacks beat the Dodgers and swept them. So let's see. The Orioles, Dodgers, and Braves, if Philadelphia were to win tonight, all 100-plus win teams will have won one collective game in the postseason if that were to happen tonight.
I would also lump the Rays in there. The Rays were just as good as anyone else, too.
The Rays also did not win a game in the postseason, so that would be, of those 4, one game. That's if the Braves lose tonight, so that's an if. But still, if they go out, it will be 3 100-plus win teams, and the other one that was the only one that was in earshot of the Orioles from June on, right? Because they had the crazy start and were way ahead of everybody. They were like 18-3 or something like that. They didn't win a game in the postseason, and now everybody's all ticked off. Because I will say this about the Diamondbacks. I said this before the series, not that I knew much about it, but when you play a division team, things can be weird.
And you have to remember they came
know
back.
you better than anybody else. It's weird. And so the same thing's happening to the Braves. They're playing a team they've played 1,000,000 times. This is tough. It gets very tough. And all the pressure's on you. You're the one that has home field advantage. You're the one that's won all the games this year.
And I said it to you last Thursday when we recorded the show before the Bears game. They came back in both those games against the Brewers. No other team did that in the opening round, and that's where momentum really goes crazy in baseball when you have those, hey, we're down in the 7th inning, 2-0, 3-0, but we're going to come back anyways. I'm not shocked at all they swept the Dodgers at all.
Swept, I'm surprised. But, like, that they won the series, I've watched sports my whole life. A division team do it. Like, I said this after the Philly game. It doesn't look good after the Chicago Bears game. But I said, they better hope they don't play us as a wild card team because we play them hard every time, and all the pressure is going to be on them, and it's going to be up there, and they're going to be freaked out all week because we're the one team they're not going to want to play in the playoffs, not in the first round for sure. Like, they're not going to want anything to do with us if we end up just getting into the playoffs, and they're the 1 seed, and then they're staring at us in the divisional round. Like, that's not going to be a good matchup for them. They're not going to like it. They may win, but they're not going to like it. And same thing has happened here. We've had 2 divisional matchups, and I'm not shocked, that like the underdog, if you will, is winning those matchups. The Orioles one is a massive disappointment, in my opinion, because it doesn't fall in that category. And of course, since this is all kind of gone haywire and it feels like baseball's upside down in the postseason, people are freaking out about the format now and seem to think that because the wild card round is not a one-off anymore, that you're not getting the teams who had the best regular seasons getting through.
Right.
And they think that, like, there's something wrong with the system now, right? I mean, is that kind of the...
I think
are baseball fans upset with the system now because of how many upsets are occurring?
I think people are more just kind of questioning it now. And
why?
Well, because it is different now. As I said to you, the difference between having a 1-game wild card now and having a series and a team is sitting at home for a week.
You have to empty the bucket.
Correct, on the 1 game.
Yeah, if you don't have a 7-1 game, you have to empty the bucket to ensure that you get through.
And so I would make the argument, like, baseball...
But the Nationals did it and won the World Series.
Right, but it was 1 game, though. You knew what to... It was survive in advance.
Survive in advance, and they had to empty the bucket to do it, but they were an upset World Series champion. No one picked them.
Right, but this is what I'm getting at here is baseball players for the entire year are creatures of habit. They're playing almost every single day.
Didn't Strasburg come in the middle of that wild card game?
Yeah.
If I remember right.
Right.
He came in the middle of it.
Correct. Yeah, but I'm not but I'm still saying though that the format is still different where the Nats only played 1 game and then went off on the road to face LA, whereas those teams are sitting at home for the entire week and playing 2 games, maybe 3 games, depending if it went. None of them went to 3 this year, and their habits are still there. Look at the Orioles in that first game. I don't know how much you watched, but they looked like they were kind of getting back up to speed that first game, so you kind of had to write that off. I think I know you're going to have your probably take on it, but my initial takeaway from all of this is bump the games up. Have the wild card be best out of 5 now, because if we're going to have a series, let's have a freaking series. Best out of 5, then bump up the first round to 7 games. This is baseball. You play 162 a year anyways. Up it.
More is more, I guess.
It.
But that means that the teams that are waiting longer.
Yeah, you're right. But I mean, either way,
any of those go to 5. You have to. That means you're 9 days.
Sure,
away
but at least you're then quote unquote gassing the other team at that point too, because at that point too, at least you're saying we've been sitting and they've been having to use all their arms that whole entire time. Like the advantage goes back to the team that's sitting at home because they're going, we didn't have to use our bullpen last night or 2 nights ago. We're good to go. So I think you up the games is my quick fix.
All right, I want to say 2 things about this. Yeah. One. It is my opinion that playing less games to get to the World Series is an advantage.
Okay.
So I don't know how it's not.
Yeah.
Not having to potentially be eliminated in the round prior is an advantage.
Right.
And whoever you play has to play you immediately on your home field.
Sure.
So... the problem with that is what exactly? Yeah, are the Orioles complaining today that they had to wait to find out who they're going to play and play the first 2 games at home in a best of 5?
No, not a single team is complaining. This is just fans. Right. Not a single team. Not a single person came out and said.
I think the Dodgers and Orioles getting swept is on them.
Sure.
It's not the system.
Sure, but
it's on them.
You can't tell me, though, we've watched sports long enough, though, that there's always that question of the team sitting at home, will they be ready to go? And it always seems like a coin flip. I mean, that's what it seems like.
Sure.
So, I mean, I I'm not sure on that one.
Here's the other one. My buddy John Kincaid, who will be on in a couple of weeks to probably make fun of us, his big Eagles person, and the Phillies may be in the World Series at that point when they come up here, said this. Dear national sports media, ask the Astros how they won the World Series last year with the best league record in this punitive playoff system. Somehow they seem to be navigating it again. It's as if a great team can actually prove they're great under pressure. This is nonsense.
No, he's right on that. He's absolutely right on that.
If you're the best team, you win.
Right.
You earned the right to have home field advantage. The other teams had to play potentially, in adverse situations because they had to start their starters or whatever in a series before. They shouldn't have their number one available to them for games 1 or 2. I'm sorry, this is on you for not getting through. That's how I look at it.
Look at last year. It was Braves Astros. Those were the two best teams in the respective AL and NL last year. The 2 years before that, it was,
and the Astros got there. The Braves didn't, but the Astros got there and won it.
But the 2 years before that, it was the Braves again. It was the Braves won it.
The Braves won it
2 years ago.
With what? The best record.
Yeah,
right?
I'm pretty sure they were the best record. They won the division.
Before, which was pandemic, was the Dodgers. But
2 years ago it was Houston, Atlanta. Last year was Atlanta or Houston, Philly. That's right. Yeah. So
yes.
But 2 years ago, Atlanta was the best team wall to wall from day one.
So the last 2 years, the team with the best record, and it won't be this year, but the team with the best record won it. The one who's the clear favorite to get back out of the AL was on a bye.
Right. Yeah.
Because they had the second best record.
Right.
What's the problem here?
I just think people are seeing. I think people are just seeing.
You don't like upsets?
Right, but I think people are seeing how baseball is played every single day like it is, and then you're screwing up the format. Like, why are we playing all these games on all these days if you're not going to have that going into the postseason?
I tell you what, when they started the wild card thing, which is exciting and all, when they first did it, I was like, that's not this sport. You play a 3-game series at minimum against everybody every week, and all of a sudden your season hinges on one game after you played 162. That doesn't make sense to me.
No, I agree.
This far more makes sense to me that you play a series.
Right.
Far more makes sense to me. And, frankly, like the wild card series doesn't even go to the other team's home at any point in time.
Correct. Yeah, right. Exactly.
Like you'd have to beat them at least twice on their field. They earned it.
Right.
Texas earned it.
Sure.
Like, why? I don't know. Like, I think the complaining is just like, what are you complaining about?
Well, I think people are
Your team failed and now you're upset because you think it's a systemic problem, which I don't see a problem with the system. You played less games to get to the same place. That's on you for losing.
But it's like I said, it has to do more with baseball's quantity. They play 162 freaking games.
Yes.
And now you're messing with the format in the postseason, which is why you play all of the games to get there. So I think that's why some fans are getting mad about it.
I think it's more closer now because the wild card series is a series and it's not a one-off.
Right. I mean, same thing.
The one-off was, to me, that was not baseball.
Right,
the one-off was never baseball.
Right, exactly. No, I would agree with you. And that's why they expanded it to the 3 games there at that point. So, I mean, I just think baseball fans are seeing 3 100-win teams go out like that. They're saying, what gives here? I hear both sides of it. There's not an easy fix, though. The other thing I saw...
Fine, you want to do something about it? Add an 8th team on both sides and everybody plays.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe that might be the way to go about it. And then you sneak another team in. I mean, that's probably not the worst thing in the world, but
just do that.
But it's the same...
Then it's no buys.
You go back to the same problem there, though, is you play so many games in a baseball season because only those teams make it in, and... This is always my argument with the people that always go, oh, they're partying for just getting in. Well, yeah, because only 12 teams usually make it in, so you should celebrate when that happens. So,
you know what I want?
What?
You know what I want?
What?
Be my favorite. This is my favorite thing.
Here we go, Jim.
Let the teams at the top pick their opponent.
Some people have said that.
Pick your opponent.
Yeah, I mean that could
now
definitely be.
Now you have to have 8 teams in because everybody plays. But like the Orioles won the AL, you get to pick who you play.
Right. No, I mean,
pick whoever. It doesn't matter in the stadium. You pick who you want, and if you didn't pick the number 2 team, which I don't think you would, then the number 2 team picks. If you happen to pick the number 3 team, then the number 4 team picks.
Right.
In order.
Sure.
And whoever's left over is stuck playing each other.
Right.
And that is a heck of a build-up because all of a sudden they picked you because they think they're going to beat you.
Yeah. They'll never do that though because baseball doesn't like things that would be viral, and that'll never happen.
It'd be amazing.
Greeny's idea today was a little ridiculous, but maybe people would like it. He said in this wild card thing, the wild card team that moves on, it then, no matter what happens or who wins the wild card series, they're automatically, the higher seeds automatically spotted a game. So it becomes best out of 6.
No. Why would you spot anybody a game? That's also not that's not competition.
Right. I mean,
spot him a game.
Right.
Why would you do that?
Because he said if you wanted an
He's
advantage.
lost his mind. He's screaming. He's like a conspiracy theorist now. He's screaming about Aaron Rodgers is going to, break medical science and come back from an Achilles before anybody on earth has ever come back from
more
it.
Tongue-in-cheek than anything else.
I guess. I like my idea better. Add an extra playoff team and just go do 1-8, 2-7, whatever.
Right.
Or let them pick their opponent.
Like I said, that one makes too much sense. Baseball would never do it.
Be incredible.
No, it would be awesome. It would probably help fix the sport. Well, I mean, they already did step 1 by doing the pitch clock thing, but it makes too much sense. That's the problem.
I mean, just think about those couple of days leading up to what the press conferences are like when people are asking them, the number 1 team picked you and you're not the 8 seed.
Right. Yeah.
Think about that for a second.
No, for sure. No. I mean,
I don't know who the 8 seed would have been this year, like Cleveland or whatever, and they go, and maybe they didn't have a good series against them, and they're like, you know what, it's a bad matchup for us. We'll take this other team. And then the Twins have to go, oh, really? Really? You want to play us, do you? Okay.
The other side of this, I know no baseball fans want to hear it, but why are we not just going 1 through 12 in the entire league? The AL and NL don't matter anymore. There's no DH on one side anymore.
Oh, so you want you qualify for the playoffs out of your league, but then we set up a table?
Well, no. It would just be a straight
1 through 12.
Yep, exactly.
Just by record?
Yep, exactly.
And what people will complain about is if you were in the dumb division.
Right, yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, obviously. But what I'm saying...
The Orioles would be like, we went through the gauntlet, guys. You know, and then... the Twins probably have a pretty decent record to be better than somebody else who played in a much harder division. I don't know. Maybe not.
I'm trying to look it up right now.
I don't know.
Let's go
So you're saying the Orioles should have played the 12 seed?
Yes, exactly.
Or actually, it would have to be the 4, right? Yeah, the 12 seed.
It actually wouldn't have been number 1. Atlanta would have been number 1. So it would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Yeah, well, this would have been funny, actually. Arizona would have been playing Atlanta in the first round. Round 2 would have been Baltimore, Minnesota.
Yeah.
Then it would be, funny enough, because of the way everything shook out, you then have Dodgers, Seattle.
The problem with this, though, is that at some point you have an unbalanced amount of teams left.
Well, no, if everybody's
12
playing.
12 would go to 6, 6 would go to 3.
Well, I guess, sorry. I guess it would
have to be 14.
14, yeah. In that case...
no, 14 goes to 7. You need 16 teams.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah,
it'd have to be 16 teams would make the playoffs.
Yeah, and in that case, the Yankees and the Padres would have made it.
Would have made it. So everybody's in. So now we're playing. Yeah, we're playing. Yeah, so now we're playing. Oh, God. Now we're playing 162 games, and if you're just beyond average, you get into the playoffs.
Well, what if you reduce the regular season by 10
they'll
games?
Never do that.
You don't know that. Not if you expanded the playoffs. And the playoffs start mid-September now? That's an easy fix. People start watching baseball every day then.
10 games you think would change the ratings in April or May?
Yes. If Atlanta is playing the Padres round 1, people are watching that. You want to know who the Orioles would have drawn?
I've been arguing for a long time that the baseball playoffs ought to be in August.
No, I disagree on that.
You're up against the NFL.
People still watch it, though. It's a local sport. It doesn't matter.
Now, and this time of year, you're up against the NFL, the NHL, and the NBA.
It's a local sport, though. It doesn't matter.
Their ratings are not good enough for the World Series. The World Series should not be butting up against every single sport.
It still doesn't matter. I'm telling you, it's a local sport. No one cares if it's outside of your market. That's the problem.
I think you have a better shot if there's a void in the sporting calendar.
I don't think it matters to them. I don't think it matters to them. Look at what happened here. Because the Commanders or then Redskins sucked in 2019. Nobody was watching those games when the Nats were in it at the same time.
Right. In August, they were like, we've won 31 of 35. Right. Where is everybody? Yeah.
By the way, if we did this 1 through 16 format, Braves would have gotten the Padres round 1.
Oh, that would have been fun.
Orioles would have gotten the Yankees.
Oh, I would have gone to that.
Right.
Anybody would have gone to that.
I'm just saying, if you want to do a 1 through 16 and start it up halfway through September.
You'd have to start it. Yeah, you'd have to start it way earlier.
Yeah, which is
like a month earlier,
right,
I think.
Right. Like mid-September, second week of September, something like that.
September 1.
Probably.
Because at least you'd get the playoffs in before the NFL actually starts.
Right.
I think that The fact that they start in October now in the sporting calendar doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I think it hurts them because there's so much competition.
I don't think
College football's ratings are outrageous. The NFL's ratings are outrageous. They're playing 3-4 times a week now.
Right.
Like, I think you want to preempt it. The void is in August and early
it doesn't
September.
Matter. That's what I'm saying.
You don't think?
No, I don't think it
I
matters
think they'd
at
have
all.
a better shot if they started it during a calendar where there's not much going on.
But like better shot at what though? There's not
Way better ratings, I think.
But it doesn't matter because if your team's not in it, nobody's watching anyways. This market,
Their games are on over the air now because they're all going bankrupt.
Right, but
Why don't you put it in a window where people don't have anything else to watch?
I mean, but once again, I think if you're not watching baseball anyways, you're not watching it no matter when it's on. Because it's that type of sport.
Maybe.
That's what I'm saying. I think it's just a hyper-local sport, so it doesn't matter where you put it. If your team is in it,
well, we always
watch.
rail on the NHL for putting games on, like during a win. Like they'll put premier matchups on. Like you'll have a Caps Penguins game that is up against a Commanders game, and we're like, what are you doing?
Well, yeah,
like why are you doing that?
Correct. That's the dumb one. But that's also, once again, you can't tell me hockey's also hyper niche. If you want to watch the Caps, you're gonna watch the Caps. So I mean, baseball I think is even more extreme where it's hyper local.
Maybe. I would argue you'd have a better, well, you've already got the hyper niche people are watching no matter what, right?
Right.
So I think you'd have a better shot at getting more people interested if they had fewer sporting options in front of them.
I mean,
that's all.
I hear your argument. I just don't. I think baseball is just
like,
not
do you want
that
more
sport.
money bet on it? Well, you're going to do it in August when, what am I betting on? The Jaguars-Browns preseason game or the Cardinals-Padres playoffs game?
Yeah, I mean.
You just got a better shot at things like that. That's all. And then maybe they get rid of the preseason entirely, which would be wonderful. And just turn it into those joint practices that everybody likes.
That ain't happening.
I wish. If they did just the joint, you could put the joint practices in the stadiums and people would watch them.
Right. Well,
they don't need the games.
They used to do that. Ravens and the Redskins used to do that.
Honestly, if you go ask Rod Rivera, John Harbaugh, they'll tell you they got more out of those joint practices with one another than they did out of the preseason game that they played.
Right.
Do more of that. I've got all the answers if anyone would just listen to me.